Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. Diego Pacheco outpoints Stephen Nelson. All three judges had it identical, 117 to 111. I had it 116, 112, a little bit closer. No doubt who won. It was Pacheco. But before we sing Pacheco's praises, let's sing the praises of Stephen Nelson, because what a tough man he is. What a tough man. I mean, these two were, on paper anyway, or if you look at the eye test, they were, couldn't be more dissimilar. You've got Pacheco, 23 years of age, 6'4". These are super middleweights, of course. But, and then you've got Stephen Nelson, who 13 years older at 36, 5'10", so a lot shorter. Now, Nelson came in undefeated, 20 wins with 16 KOs, no draws, no defeats. He is an army veteran, apparently, who started boxing in his 20s late on. And it does kind of show because he lacks a bit of finesse. Clearly, physicality is his thing. He's built like a barrel. I mean, around the chest and the stomach, he's real physically tough. But his technique is rudimentary, shall we say. It's not to say he can't box. He can, but he's not world level, not in terms of boxing skills. What he does to make up for that is use his physical strength. And he doesn't, I wouldn't say he has one punch power, although he has got 16 KOs in 20 wins. But he can hurt you. He can clip you. And Pacheco, for the first 4 rounds, was kind of having a look, and you got the feeling, even though sometimes he does start in the first 3 rounds a little bit slow, but you got the feeling, well, you don't want to be doing too much of this because it's a 12-round fight. But I thought after 4 rounds, I can't remember what I had it. Did I have it 2 each? But some of the commentators, I think, there was a number of commentators on the DAZN broadcast, I think a few of them had it 3-1 up, had Stephen Nelson 3-1 up. And this sort of cat and mouse thing carried on with Pacheco, the longer levers. The thing that Nelson needed to do was avoid that sort of mid-range. If you've got a guy who's taller than you, longer dimensions, mid-range, that could be a dangerous thing because you can get clipped with long punches. He needed to be at the eye of the storm, in close, working, getting physical, or he needed to be out of range. But sort of zipping in quick without being caught in no man's land was a bit problematic for him. And then in the 7th round, Pacheco seemed to sort of wake up and suddenly was going through the gears. And in the 7th round, it was a bad round for Nelson. Pacheco kind of beat him up quite badly. But Nelson, even though he was cut over, which eye was it now? Oh, I can't remember. I know he was definitely cut. He was able to, I mean, they kind of contained it in the corner. But the cut, I think it was his left eye, it did seem to bother him a little bit. He said afterwards in the post-fight interview that he hadn't prepared for a cut. Well, of course, you never do. But you also have to bear in mind that Nelson, despite being 36 years of age and having 20 previous fights, he'd never done the 12 rounds. He'd done the 10 a couple of times, I think. Well, certainly at least once, because that was about 2 fights ago. But Pacheco, despite being 13 years younger, probably had more experience. I mean, he'd done 10 rounders. And Pacheco, don't forget, with 24 wins, had 18 KOs, so he had some pop himself. And I think the dimensions were, if he can box long, even though sometimes he fights a bit small, but if he can box long, that 6'4" is going to be very difficult to beat. 6'4" super middleweight they're rare. Well, anyway, the 7th round was a big round for Pacheco. And I think he probably took the middle rounds as well, right up to about the 10th. But then suddenly Nelson, with Bomac in his corner, he's from Omaha, Nebraska, same as Terence Crawford. Crawford was in the crowd cheering him on. But Bomac said to him, look, you're losing the fight. You've got to get your skates on. Either, this is it. piss or get off the pot because you're getting beaten here. And in the last 2 rounds, Nelson just gave everything. He gave everything. He dragged Pacheco into a fight. He landed a couple of punches that, if Pacheco didn't have a good chin, and clearly he does, he would have felt those, and they could have been problematic. And in the last round, I mean, you were sort of cheering Nelson on, not because anything against Pacheco. He boxed very, very well, very, very skillfully. But Nelson's courage and grit and determination, it sort of won me over as I was watching the fight. But there was only one winner, make no mistake about it, and that was Diego Pacheco. Now, Pacheco, where does he go from here? Because at super middleweight, I mean, he is the WBO's #1 contender. But of course, we're talking Canelo. And Canelo is at the point of his career where, quite wrongly, he is allowed by the ruling bodies to just pick whoever he wants. I don't think he'll pick Pacheco. Having said that, at 23, Pacheco he probably hasn't reached his peak, his pinnacle. I don't know whether he's got his man strength. He is a big lad for 168. But Canelo has, he's ducked the 2 Davids, Benavidez and Morrell, who have gone to light heavy. Would he pick Pacheco? He might pick him now. I mean, he's obviously going to fight Crawford next, but after that, next year when Pacheco's a year older, you know what, I can see Canelo avoiding him. Canelo's getting up there in age a bit. Don't forget, he's had a lot of fights. So when you say a lot of fights, of course, you're also talking about a lot of training camps, which takes it out of you even more. But I think Pacheco might have to hang around. Maybe Canelo will vacate one of the belts, the WBO perhaps, and Pacheco can pick it up. But when you've got someone who has all the belts and seems reluctant to fight his mandatory contenders, I mean, I think even if it's Canelo or someone, even if it was Bud Crawford or Inoue or whoever, if you're not going to fight your mandatories, you should be stripped. A lot of people moan about that. They say belts should be won and lost in the ring. In principle, I agree. But if you've got someone who's holding belts hostage, I don't agree with that at all. So I kind of feel for Pacheco, but he's got a future. I mean, at 23 years old, he's got a future. Another 5 years, and Canelo will probably have walked off into the sunset, we would think. Whereas, someone like Pacheco would only be like 28 years old. Steve Nelson said after the fight, I might be 36, but I don't care. I'm still in the mix. In terms of courage, no doubt about it, he is. He's a tough, tough man. But I'll tell you what, Pacheco, despite the fact he's so young, was able to contain him and was able to handle a lot of pressure, a lot of that grinding pressure that can unravel a lot of lesser fighters. Diego Pacheco didn't roll over. He did very, very well in that fight and against a tough, tough opponent. So I think he's got a future. The clock's ticking for Steve Nelson at 36, but after that performance, he'll get another chance. And he deserves it as well. He deserves it. So what did you think? What do you think of Pacheco? What do you think his next move should be, bearing in mind that the belts are tied up? He does have some WBO international thing and an IBF thing, the trinket as well. I think, I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken. But WBC, they just give the belts out like sweets, don't they? But yeah, let me know what you think about Pacheco. How good is he? How good can he be? Who should he fight next? Let me know. Give me your opinions below in the comments, and I will, of course, answer as many as I can. I always read your comments, so thanks for taking the time to do that, to comment. If you're new to the channel and you could subscribe, that would be brilliant, and also hit the like button as well. It's free, and you are helping out the channel. We want to build it up, don't we? Come on. This ain't an echo chamber. I want to hear your opinions as well. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Not a bad weekend's boxing. Let's look forward to the next lot. Thank you very much, and bye for now.